to the latest episode of Mystery Unsolved. I am, of course, your host, Justin Bienvenue. I was supposed to get on at 7, but it's now almost 7:30. I apologize, not that anyone's watching this in the beginning live. I like to do these live because, well, it gives me something to do. So I could pre-record them and send them out, but then really nobody would watch them. Nevertheless, happy Friday. It is time once again for the latest Mystery Unsolved episode, and tonight we are going to be discussing the Somerton Man. For those not familiar with the Somerton Man, you are in for a doozy. This is again one of the guys from Mystery Unsolved, so thank you to Ryan and Shane for doing this topic. Without further ado, I will give you some backstory. You know the deal. So I'm going to give you some backstory on who the Somerton Man is, why he's a mystery, and then I will give you 5 theories, perhaps 5 theories, I don't know, maybe less, on what is this man, why it's a mystery. So without further ado, Mystery Unsolved, the Somerton Man. The Somerton Man was an unidentified man whose body was found on December 1st, 1948, on the beach of Somerton Park, of Adelaide, South Australia. The case is also known after the Persian phrase tamam shad. Persian is over or is finished. Printed on a scrap paper found months later in the fob pocket of the man's trousers. The scrap had been torn from the final page of a copy of the Rubaiyat of Omar Khayyam, the 20th century poet Omar Khayyam. So if you need a little context for that, I know it's kind of hard to really understand what was going on. Basically, the Somerton Man was identified. His body was found on the beach. They have no idea who he is. And the only identification on him, the only thing on him is a torn up piece of paper from the book of the Rubaiyat of Omar Khayyam, and it says Tamam, which means is over or is finished in Persian. Yeah. It is worth knowing that the man that they identified as the Somerton Man was between the ages of 42 and 43 years old. Following a public appeal by police, the book from which the page had been torn was located. Following a public appeal by police, the book from which the page had been torn was located. Oh, on the inside back cover, the indentations left from previous handwriting, a local telephone number, another unidentified number, and a coded message. The text had not been deciphered or interpreted in a way that satisfies authorities in the case. So in other words, they tried to move heaven on earth to figure out. Obviously, we're going to talk about the message, because if there's anything that's more bizarre than not knowing who this man was, it's why he had a torn up piece of a book with the Persian phrase "is finished." Does that mean he was finished? Because he was. It just seems very odd, you know. The case has been considered in the early stages of the police investigation as one of Australia's most profound mysteries. There have been intense speculation ever since regarding the identity of the victim. I'm going to read something, and it sounds stupid. I'm a good reader, but for whatever reason, I don't know. I read things weird. I don't have dyslexia either. I don't know. But anyway, I apologize. The cause of his death and the events leading up to it. Public interest in the case remains significant for several reasons. The death occurred at the time of the heightened international tensions following the beginning of the Cold War, the apparent involvement of a secret group, the possible use of an undisclosed and the inability of authorities to identify the dead man. I apologize. Uh, all right, there we go. On July 2022, that's a couple months earlier, folks. Couple months ago, Adelaide University professor Derek Abbott, in association with genealogist M. Fitzpatrick, claimed to have identified the man as Carl Charles Webb, an electrical engineer. See what I mean? I stumble over words, and there's no reason for it. Maybe because I'm reading it live. An instrument maker born in 1905, based on genetic genealogy from DNA. South Australia Police and Forensic Science, South Australia, have not verified the result, but South Australia Police were very cautiously optimistic about it. So leave it to Australian police. If you're from Australia, I apologize, but Australian police sound like dipshits and retards, because evidence usually proves things right. Yet Australian police are just kind of like, no, we don't believe it. My God. All right. So let's get into the initial discovery and the investigation on the Somerton man. On December 1st, 1948, at 6:30 a.m., the police were contacted after the body of a man was discovered on Somerton Park Beach, Glenelg, about 11 kilometers southwest of Adelaide, South Carolina. South Australia. See what I mean? South Australia. God, most people would probably edit this. I don't do editing. I just read every Friday because that's what I do. So when I make mistakes, nobody's more than I am. At least see, I can't even talk. It's because I'm live. Maybe I'm nervous. Why would I be nervous? I do this every Friday to nobody. If anything, it shows you how authentic. Let's continue. The man was found in the sand across the crippled children's home. Let's back up for a second. The man was found lying in the sand across from the crippled children's home, which was on the corner of the Esplanade and Pickford Terrace. Jesus Christ! So his body was found on a beach, on a beach that was across from a crippled children's home. Okay, all right. He was lying with his head resting against the sea wall, with his legs extended and his feet crossed. It was believed the man died while sleeping. An unlit cigarette was on the right collar of his coat. A search of his pockets revealed an unused second-class ticket from Adelaide to Henley Beach, a bus ticket from the city that had been used, a narrow aluminum comb that had been manufactured in the United States, and a half-empty pack of seafood chewing gum, an Army Club cigarette packet which contained several cigarettes of a different brand, Kensitas, a quarter-full box of Bryant and May Magic. So a name brand there, but also perhaps some of the most odd stuff. Very, very weird. Like, you could find those things on most people, but not really. Not really. Witnesses who came forward said that on the evening of November 30th, they had seen an individual resembling the dead man on his back in the same spot where the corpse was later found. Wait. Let's back up for a second. So, okay, so November 30th, December. Okay. I was thinking that the December date was like way, way later. Like, wait, why did it take so long to announce this body? A couple who saw him at around 7 p.m. noted that they saw him extend his right arm towards and drop it limply. Another saw him from 7:30 p.m. to 8 p.m., during which the time had come on, recounted they did not see him move during the half an hour in which he was in view, although they did have the impression that his position Although they commented themselves that it was odd that he was not reacting to the mosquitoes, they had thought it was more like drunk or asleep, and thus did not investigate further. One of the witnesses told the police she observed a man looking down at the sleeping man from the top of the steps that led to the beach. Witnesses said the body was in the same position when the police viewed it. So basically, in a nutshell, a couple of sounds like a couple couples saw this man from like across the street, and it was getting late at night. The streetlights come on, and they noticed that the man's movements never changed. So like maybe at least 2 to 3 accounts that I just read to you, all of the man was in the same position. That he never moved, and they thought it was weird. But at the same time, they're like, well, he's probably not dead. He's not thinking he's dead. They're just like, oh, maybe he's just sleeping or he's drunk. Maybe that's typical. Is it typical for them to see bodies on the beach like that? I would assume so, because otherwise you should probably look into that if that's not an everyday thing. Another witness came forward in 1959, that's 11 years later, and reported it to the police that he and the 3 others had seen a well-dressed man carrying another man on his shoulders along Somerton Park Beach the night before the body was found. A police report was made by Detective Donald. Okay, why would you come forward 11 years later? Well, do you have a guilty conscience? Like, hey, you remember that body you guys found on the beach 11 years ago? Did you guys ever identify that? No, what do you ask? Well, me and my buddy may have seen another well-dressed man carrying that guy on his shoulders. Useful, but better late than never, right? According to the pathologist John Burton Cleland, the man was of Britisher appearance and thought to be between the ages of 40 and 45. In top physical condition, he was dressed in a white shirt, a red, white, and blue tie, brown trousers, socks and shoes, a brown pullover, and a fashionable gray and brown double-breasted jacket of reportedly American tailoring. All labels on his clothes had been removed. Oh yeah, this is probably to me one of the weirdest parts of this story. All the labels on his clothes had been removed. Yeah, try to wrap your head around that. And he had no hat, unusual for 1948, or a wallet. Really? Because every single man in 1948 wore a hat, apparently. Where's his hat? I don't see his hat. Charlie, you see a hat on this man? No. Yeah, that's probably just, yeah, okay. You definitely need a wallet. Like a hat, like, come on now. We're going to see a lot of a lot of 40s jogging, see? My 40s impression. He was clean shaven and carried identification. Well, he had no blood on him, so I would assume not. Led police to believe he had committed suicide. We're going to get back to that one in a minute. Dental records were not able to be matched to any known person. Okay. First of all, I have 3 issues right off the top of the. First of all, apparently it's unusual for Australian men to not be wearing hats. What of that? He had no identification, which led police to believe he had committed suicide. Huh? So if you don't have identification on you, if you see a dead body and it doesn't have identification, he might have killed himself. What draws you to that suspicion? What draws you to that conclusion? Finally, his dental records were not able to be matched to any known person. Okay, so basically, dental records in 1948 were shit to the point where you couldn't. Hey, they look like everybody's teeth. We don't know who this person is because we're not advanced enough to know based off of dental record. Something tells me the more that we read here, the more I'm gonna just despise the astro. Australian police because they sound absolutely retarded. An autopsy was conducted, and the pathologist estimated that the time of death at 2 a.m. on December 1st. So look at that. The pathologist can depict when the man died, what day, what time, and yet dental records are like, we have no idea what this is. I'm not a good dentist. I'm not a good police officer. Hello. That was British. All right. Do you want to hear about the man's? Skip this. It pretty much just tells you all the stuff in his body was intact. Yeah, I don't know. He had a couple of weird things in his body. The autopsy also showed that the man's last meal was a pasty. Okay, unfortunately, I skipped the whole insides part, but the heart was of normal size and normal in every way. Small vessels commonly observed in the brain were easily discernible with congestion. There was congestion of the pharynx, and the gullet was covered with whitening of spherical layers of the mucosa with a patch of ulceration in the middle of it. See why I didn't want to read it? That, I don't speak doctor. What does that mean? The stomach was congested. There was congestion in the second half of the duodenum. There was blood mixed with the food in the stomach. Both kidneys were congested. The liver contained a great excess of blood in its vessels. The spleen was strikingly large, 3 times the normal size. The liver was revealed under the microscope. Acute hemorrhage, gastric congestion of the liver and spleen, and congestion of the brain. Okay, basically, his body was slightly disturbed. The autopsy also showed that the man's last meal was a pasty about 3 times to 4 hours before death. But tests failed to reveal any foreign substance in the body. The pathologist, Dr. Dwyer, hey, we got a name for this cool, awesome pathologist who can do his job, unlike the police and dentist, Jesus, conducted. I am quite convinced that that's not natural. The poison I suggested was a barbiturate or a soluble hypnotic. Although poison remained a prime suspicion, the pasty was not believed to be the source. Other than that, the coroner was able to reach a conclusion as to the man's identity, cause of death, or whether the man seen alive at the Somerton beach on the evening of November 30th was the same man, as nobody had seen his face at the time. He was embalmed on December 10th, 1948, after the police were unable to get a positive identification. The police said that it was the first time they knew that such action was needed. Okay, we're gonna go over that again because coroner was unable to reach a conclusion as to the man's identity, cause of death, or whether the man seen alive at the beach on the 30th of November was the same man. So basically, the coroner is just as good at his job as the police dentist. What good? The police said this was the first time they knew that such action was needed. What action? Identification. I don't. We're 19 minutes in, and I'm not even done with this. On January 4th, on 14th, 1949, staff at railway station discovered a brown suitcase. The labels were moved. Oh, you know where this is going, which had been to a station cloakroom after 11 a.m. on November 1948. It was believed the case was owned by the man found on the beach. In the case was a dressing gown, a size 7 red velvet pair of slippers, 4 pairs of underpants, pajamas, shaving items, a large brown pair of trousers with sand and nuts, electrician screwdriver, a knife cut down into a short, sharp instrument, a pair of scissors with sharpened points, a small square of zinc, thought to have been used as a protective sheath for the knife and scissors, a stenciling brush, and used by three officers on merchant ships for stenciling cargo. What the freak? It's just a bunch of random weird. That sounds weird to me. Also in the suitcase was a thread card for bore, brown, an unusual type not in Australia. Okay, what the freak? Basically, he had weird shit in his suitcase. It was a to repair the lining in a pocket of the trousers the dead man was wearing. Identification marks on the clothes had been removed, but police found the name T. Keane on a tie, Keane on a laundry bag, and Keane, Kean, on a singlet undershirt, along with a 3-day cleaning mark. Police believe that whoever removed the clothing tags either overlooked these 3 items or purposely left the Keane tag on the clothes, knowing Keane was not the dead man's name. With wartime rationing still in force, clothing was difficult to acquire at the time, although it was a very common practice to use name tags on second-hand clothing to remove the tags of the previous owners. Oh, I didn't know that. What was unusual was that there was no spare socks found in the case, and no correspondence. Police found pencils and unused stationery. Oh my god, Australian police is driving me bonkers. Holy shit. Why didn't he have socks? You ever notice that? You know that, right? He's got no extra pair of socks in his suitcase. What are you supposing? Well, I'll tell you what I'm supposing. Supposing that he's got pencils, stencils, and letter stationery, but he ain't got no extra socks. See? A search concluded that no one was in any English-speaking country. So they can conclude that there wasn't. They could conclude that there was no man named T. Keane missing, but they had no idea who was missing. A nationwide circulation of the dry cleaning marks was also proved fruitless. Oh my god, it's just, sorry. Police checked incoming train records and believed that the man had arrived at the Adelaide railway station by overnight train from either Melbourne, Sydney, or Port Augusta. Damn it. They speculated he had showered and shaved at the adjacent city bath. There was no bath ticket on his body before returning to the train. See what I mean? They have all this weird shit that you would otherwise not even think to look into. We know he took a bath, but we don't know who he is. How the fuck do you know when he took a bath? What do you care that he had letter stationery in his suitcase? But you have no freaking idea who he is. God, I don't know if it's because of the time period or just because fucking stupid back. Holy crap. An inquest into the man's death conducted by coroner Thomas S. Cleland, of good old Cleland again, commenced a few days following the discovery of the body by the adjourned, but was adjourned until June 7th. Cleland, as the investigating pathologist, re-examined the body and made a number of discoveries. Oh, now he discovers stuff the second time he looks at the body. Like, what the fuck were you doing the first time, buddy? I apologize if I'm swearing a lot. This is just starting to irritate me. Like, if any of these pencil necks knew how to do that, the Somerton would be solved. That's what it sounds like to me. He noted that the man's shoes were remarkably clean and to have been recently polished, rather than the condition expected of a man who had apparently been wandering around. Well, how do you know he was walking around all day? That's never come up until right now. He added that this evidence fit in with the theory that the body may have been brought to Somerton Park Beach after the man's death, accounting for the lack of evidence of vomiting and convulsion, which are the two main sociological reactions to poison. So, Pencil neck Cleveland hair originally was like, it's poison. It's poison. It's poison. I will die on this hill. It's poison. And then he actually does his job for like a little bit the first time. It wasn't poison. So then when he does it a second time, he's like, he found there was vomiting and convulsions. So then he's like, oh yeah, it wasn't poison. So you were the only person that said it was poisoning. Proving to yourself the time you look into the body and investigate that it's not poisoning. But nobody else was concluding that it was poison except for you, Pencil neck Cleveland. Cleveland speculated that as none of the witnesses could positively identify the man they saw the previous night as the same person discovered the next morning, there remained a possibility that the man had died elsewhere and had been dumped. He stressed that this was purely speculation, as all the witnesses believed that it was definitely the same person, as the body was in the same place and the same distinctive position. He also found no evidence indicating the identity of the deceased. Okay, so Pencil neck Cleveland hair. He stressed it was purely speculation, as all witnesses believed it was definitely the same person. Okay, so I know the difference here is, and why this guy is just annoying the living crap out of me. Several witnesses said they saw a body, they saw a man on the beach walking, and that he just kind of sat down, and he was in the same position. Actually saw the body. They saw the body in a position. Pencil neck Cleveland hair, that's his name, convinced that it was poison, yet the two times that he did the autopsy, that there was absolutely no, ingestion of poison that indicates that it's poison. So to me, the witnesses are way more credible as to seeing a body on the beach, not moving, than Pencil neck Cleveland, Pathol, whatever the hell he is, the coroner, being like, oh, well, it wasn't poison. But those people that said they saw him on the beach, and speculation. I believe the people on the beach over Pencil Cleveland. Hashtag Pencil neck Cleveland. If you're going to take anything from this episode, please do that on Twitter so that I can see Pencil neck Cleveland trending one day, and I'll just be like, ha! All right. We are now 28 minutes in. Normally I do a half-hour videos. I don't want it to be hours, so hopefully I can wrap this up in the next 10 minutes. Okay. Drug variants of a drug in the he called professor of psychology and pharmacology at the University of Adelaide testified that of a group of drug variants of a drug in that group he called number 1, in particular number 2, were extremely toxic in a relatively small oral, extremely difficult, if not impossible, to identify, even if it had been suspected in the first instance. He gave a paper with the names of 2 drugs which were entered, and oh God, the names were not released to the public until the 1980s. At the time, they were quite easily procurable by the ordinary individual, from a chemist without need to give a reason of the purchase. Hicks noted that the only fact not found in relation to the body was evidence of vomiting. He stated that its absence was not known, but that he could not make a frank conclusion without it. Hicks stated that if death had occurred 7 hours after the man had last seen to move, it would imply a massive dose that could still have been undetectable. Not the movement seen by witnesses at 7 p.m. could have convulsion preceding death. So Pencil neck Cleveland probably told this professor, he's like, hey, I think it's still poison. Can you help me? I don't think it was poison, just because this is retarded. I don't think it was poison. I don't. I'm convinced now. Earlier in the inquiry, Cleveland stated, "I would be prepared to find that he died from poison, that the poison was probably a glucoside, and that it was not accidentally administered. But I cannot say whether it was administered by the deceased himself or by some other person." Oh my God, this guy is just ruining this episode for me. Oh my God. Did anybody just try to question this man? Like, anybody at all? Obviously, they're retarded. Oh my God. Despite these findings, he could not determine the cause of death of the unidentified man. Cleveland remarked that if the body had been carried to its final resting place, then all difficulties would appear. But they didn't, which means he wasn't poisoned, you stupid bastard. After the inquest, a plaster cast was made of the man's head and shoulders. Huh. The lack of success in determining the identity and cause of death of the man had led authorities to call it an unparalleled mystery and believe that the cause of death might never be known. Oh, God. I'm not sure if I'm going to have theories for you, but I'm going to tell you something right now. Straight up. It's not on my list. Even if it is poison, I don't care. Pencil neck Cleveland, this fucking guy. I've never heard of somebody contradict themselves so freaking much, or contradict evidence that goes against your own, just so that you can look to see that you're right. Around the same time as the inquest, a tiny piece of rolled up paper. Oh, here we go. We're going to talk about the piece of paper now. Because if there's a bigger mystery than not knowing how he died or who he was, why this piece of paper was on his person. Around the same time as the inquest, a tiny piece of rolled up paper with the words "Tamam Shah" was found in a faux pocket sewn within the dead man's trouser pocket. Public library officials called it in to translate the text identified the phrase meaning "ended" or "finished," found on the last page of the Rubaiyat of Omar Khayyam. The paper's verso side was blank. Police conducted an Australian-wide search to find the copy of the book that had been similarly blank, that had the blank verse. A photograph of the scrap of paper was released to the press. Following a public appeal by police, the copy of the Rubaiyat, in which the page had been torn, was located. A man shown police a 1941 edition of Edward Fitzgerald's 1859 translation of Rubaiyat, published by whatever. Detective Sergeant Lionel Lee, who led the initial investigation. Oh, okay. So, remember I said the police are a crock of crap? Can't be trusted in this episode? Well, Detective Sergeant Lionel Lee is the guy leading the investigation. So he's the head dipshit of this police squad. Often protect the privacy of witnesses in public statement by using a pseudonym. Lean referred to the man who found the book by the pseudonym Ronald Francis, and he has never been officially identified. You can't identify a man whose body you found on a beach. So you think it would be okay when you get this off the dead body and you find out where it came from and you don't want to release the name. And his real name's never been identified. Are you kidding me? I have to watch other videos on Merchant Man on YouTube just to see if anybody else is as jarred as I am. Ticked off as I am. Excuse me for a moment. I have to get up. And the stretch. Oh my lord. See, when I watched this on BuzzFeed Unsolved, maybe because it was so mysterious to me that I just overlooked these things. But my God. Oh. Francis had not considered that the book might be connected to the case until he had seen an article in the previous day's newspaper. There is some uncertainty about the circumstances under which the book was found. One newspaper article refers to the book being found a week or two before the body was found. Oh God! So now they don't even know when the book was found, even though they just said that they found it on the sky. The theme of Rubia is that one should live life to the fullest and have no regrets when it ends. The poem's subject led to theorize that the man had committed suicide by poison, although no other evidence corroborated the theory. The book was missing the words Imam Shah. We know this on the last page, which had one verse. We know this. And microscopic tests indicated that the piece of paper from the page. Oh, we already know this. Also, in the back of the book were faint indentations representing 5 lines of text in capital letters. The second line had been struck out, in fact, considered significant due to its similarities to the fourth line, and possibly that it represents an error in encryption. So yeah, there's like WRGOBABD. That's what's written. MLIAOI, that's crossed out. And then there's like 3 other words. Well, they're not words, they're just letters put together. They pretty much, I'm not going to read the rest of this. It basically, they tried to there was attempts to decode the message, but in all likelihood, it's just going to be a bunch of contradictory bullshit. Oh yeah, just a bunch of bull. All right. A number of possible identifications have proposed over the years. On December 3rd, 1948, a day after the advisor named him as the likely victim, E.C. Johnson identified himself at a police station. Ha! They're like, hey, we think it's E.C. Johnson. I'm E.C. Johnson. Oh God, if you take anything from this video, please know that the Somerton man has never been solved because Australian police were retarded as hell in 1948, and there was a coroner named Pencil Neck Cleland who was just absolutely incompetent, was incompetent at doing his job. The same day, the news published a photograph of the dead man on its front page, leading additional calls from members of the public about his possible identity. By December 4th, police had announced that the man's fingerprints were not on South Australian police records, forcing them to look further afield. December 5th, they reported the police were searching for the military records after a man claimed to have had a drink with a person resembling the dead man at a hotel. During their drinking session, the mysterious man supposedly produced a military pension card bearing the name Sullivanson. In 1949, two people identified the body as 63-year-old former woodcutter Robert Walsh. A third person, James Mack, also viewed the body. Initially could not identify it, but an hour later he contacted police to claim it was Walsh. They all sound drunk. Mack stated the reason he did not confirm this at the viewing was that there was a difference in color of the hair. Walsh had left Adelaide several months earlier to buy sheep in Queensland, but had failed to return at Christmas as planned. Okay, what? He was wearing a 2-piece suit with like a sweater. How you gonna go buy? I know he had a suitcase. Oh my God. He thought that a positive identification had been made for squash. However, when Elizabeth Thompson, one of the people who had earlier positively identified the body as Walsh, retracted her statement after a second viewing of the body, where the absence of a particular scar body, as well as the size of the dead man's leg, led her to realize the body was not Walsh. All I took from that, from reading all that, was that the first time everyone looked at the body, 4 people looked at the body and they're like, that's Walsh. That's Walsh. That's Walsh. And then they viewed the body the second time, like, yeah, that's not Walsh. That's not Robert. Well, who the hell's Robert Walsh? In early February 1949, there were 8 different positive identifications of the body, including 2 Darwin men who thought the body was a friend of theirs, and others who thought they were a missing station worker, a worker on a steamship, or a Swedish man. There's just more stuff. All right, so this is 40 minutes, way too long. I'm not going to be able to solve this one. Not that I solved any other case before, but I have no idea who it is. I'm going to go with the initial thing that was that guy Carl in the beginning. That was just solved a couple months ago. Carl Cobb, or whatever his name was. It was obviously not Robert Walsh. Like, how do you look at a body and think, hey, that looks like somebody I know? Yeah, that's him. And then you look at the body the second time and you're like, no, that's not him. I don't know. Oh God, I don't know. That hurt my brain reading all that. You can see why the case is a mystery. You can definitely see why it's a mystery. There's just so many things that don't add up. Such incompetence by the coroner, the police, the lack of evidence, the lack of technology back then, pretty much is the reason why it went unsolved for so many years. And how he died, I mean, if he wasn't poisoned, Justin, then how did he die? I don't know. I really don't know. He didn't have any marks on him, obviously. He had a heart attack. I don't know. I just don't think it was poison. Why did he have that piece of paper in his pocket? Well, maybe he was philosophical. Why were the labels on his clothes cut off? That's a good question. I think that's the biggest mystery. Not about who he was, not about how he died. Why were the labels on his clothes all taken off? There's more there's just layer upon layer of mystery. Oh, I didn't think this would anger me so much. Oh my God. Who do you think the summer was? How do you think he died? Why do you why do you think he had a piece of paper that had a Persian meaning on it? Why do you think the labels on his clothes were all taken off? If anybody has any thoughts, please, you know the deal. Feel free to comment. Also, if you like this video and you like the other ones, you already know what to do. Feel free to like and subscribe to my station, Mr. Unsolved, PlasmaticWriterTV. Do stay tuned next Friday as we're going to run this back and do it all again. Not on the Somerton man, though. Dear God. BuzzFeed Unsolved did 2 episodes on this, and you can see why, but I'm sticking to 1. But yeah, I hope you enjoy. My angst aside, my anger aside, my annoyance aside, the 3 A's. I hope you enjoyed this video. Do feel free to watch more. And until next Friday, take care.